So, hi guys, my name is Sam, and for the longest time I wanted to start a podcast, but I couldn't. I didn't know any original ideas. They'd all seemed to be done before. Sorry, I'm just working with the camera here. So, I finally thought of an original one, so let's jump in to my podcast, shall we? I'm recording this in a room, sitting down with a mess of cables around me, and I have a cloth over the camera because I couldn't figure out how to just record audio. So there's a cloth over my webcam right now. So what we're going to be doing is reviewing. I probably haven't told you this, but as you've probably read in the title, this is the Page Podcast, the only podcast on the internet where we review not books or chapters, but pages. So the way this will work is I'll review the first page of every chapter of a book, and then I'll review the book based off that. Now, sometimes I want to read the entire chapter. I do want to do that, but, it's kind of hard to do that for every chapter, to basically reread an entire book. So instead, what we'll be doing is I'll pick one of my favorite chapters, so we're in the context here. So it'll be around chapter 17, it'll be around chapter 17, 16, so yeah. So anyways, it's a minute in and I haven't even gotten to the podcast bit yet. So we'll be reviewing Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. I probably shouldn't have mentioned that. So, and I'm pretty sure I have to mention this on a podcast reviewing books? Spoiler warning. But I'm not sure how you can get a spoiler out of reading the first page of every chapter. We won't be getting a lot of action in this, so don't expect a lot, and I'll be reading these. So, let's start with Chapter 1, Page 1, I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher. And if you've listened to the musical, which is a bit unlikely, but I mean, hey, I'm holding out hope. It's great, you should. A lot of the opening page is lyrics from the musical. So, let's go! Look, I didn't want to be a half-blood. If you're reading this because you think you might be one, my advice is, close the book right now, believe whatever lie your mom and dad told you about your birth, and try to lead a normal life. Being a half-blood, it's dangerous. It's scary. Most of the time, it gets you killed in painful, nasty ways. So, it's a good opening, Bish. I'd like to say that. So, I'll get into the big plot later, but I think it's a good opening bit. You could do worse, but, I mean, this guy, Rick Riordan, he's the guy who wrote all these books, he knows how to, do an opening. Gets you hooked in immediately. The books may start off slow, but he gets you hooked in. So, next paragraph. If you're a normal kid reading this because you think it's fiction, great, read on. I envy you for being able to believe that none of this ever happened. But if you recognize yourself in these pages, if you feel something stirring inside, stop reading immediately. We still recording? My thing just shut off by itself there for no reason. So, sorry, my thing just shut off. It's still recording, I hope. Yeah. Where were I? Oh, yes. Yeah. So, as I said before, it gets you roped in, and it makes you believe that this is a real world. Because if you don't believe this is real, you can't get attached to the characters. It's hard to get attached to people when you know they're fiction, that this entire thing is fiction. And, you can tell, and he's taking advantage of the fact that it's told from Percy's perspective and not some untold narrator. So, yeah. You might be one of us, and once you know that, it's only a matter of time before they sense it too, and they'll come for you. Don't say I didn't warn you. So, basically the same thing. Half of the page, well, more like most of the page is just dedication to that little warning. Don't say I didn't warn you, bish. So I wish he did start a little earlier. Or maybe he didn't maybe if, like, you didn't have to do the, if you're a normal kid bish, but, I think it's good that he spent so much time on the exposition. So, my name is Percy Jackson. I'm 12 years old. Until a few months ago, I was at a boarding school for Yancey Academy, a private school for troubled young kids in upstate New York. Am I troubled? Yeah, you could say that. So that was the first page. So overall, it was good to get your roping in, but it wasn't very good overall at explaining who Percy is, what his whole situation is. From reading that, you can tell that his name is Percy Jackson. He's 12 years old. What school he goes to, and that he lives in New York. So you couldn't really get a lot from it, but like from an opening page in a chapter, you can tell it's good. Right. So now, because I'm reading this, I have to do a little exposition of my own about what happened in between. So, it's not a lot. It's a great action chapter. You should definitely read it. Don't just listen to this and expect me to, talk about it, but still. So, basically what happens is that he was on a field trip to see ancient Greek statues, and he was also reminiscing about missing his mom, which is, and her name is Sally, and she works in a candy shop, and how he doesn't want to meet his stepdad, Gabe, who is smelly, and that's all we really get from him. He has a best friend called Grover, who, if you haven't read up to around chapter 3, or you haven't just read the contents, you'll know is a Stater, who is a half-ghost, half-human person who protects half-bloods like Percy. So, yeah. And then his pre-algebra teacher, who he's talking about, is Mrs. Dodds, who he turns out to be a Fury, and then he fights it with a sword pen. It doesn't make sense, but it makes sense when you read the book. I mean, not really, but it kind of does. So, let's go. Chapter 2, page 16, 3 old ladies lit the socks of 3 old ladies knit the socks of death. Sometimes I get mixed up with my syllables. Like when I'm saying New York, sometimes I'll end up saying New Nork or something like that. So, if I say that, I'll correct myself. But, I usually don't. I was used to the occasional weird experience, but usually they were over quickly. This 24/7 hallucination was more than I could handle. For the rest of the school year, the entire campus seemed to be playing some kind of trick on me. The students acted as if they were completely and totally convinced that Mrs. Kerr, a perky blonde woman who I've never seen in my life until she got on the bus at the end of the field trip. I just wanted to add a little side note there. Mrs. Kerr, when I first read that, I read it as Mrs. Kerry, which is a county in Ireland. I'm Irish, if you couldn't tell. You probably couldn't tell because I'm not hoity-toity fiddly-dee, I like Guinness and potatoes. That's not my accent. But I read it as Mrs. Carey instead of Mrs. Kerr. So, every so often I would spring a Mrs. Dodds reference on someone, just to see if I could trip them up. But they would stare at me like I was psycho. It got so bad, I almost believed them. Mrs. Dodds had never existed. Almost. But Grover couldn't fool me. When I mentioned the name Dodds to him, he would hesitate, then claim she didn't exist. But I knew he was lying. So, you could tell that Percy isn't book smart from the first chapters and, well, really the first 3 chapters, but he's definitely street smart. Like, he can tell when someone's lying, but he can't tell what is the ratio of a square or something. So, I do think that this page sets up. A lot of the opening chapters will either be introducing you to a new location, or a new side of Percy, or one of the characters. This is especially true with the Heroes of Olympus series, which is told from different perspectives. So, let's go. Something was going on. Something had happened at the museum. I didn't have much time to think about during the days, but at night, visions of Mrs. Dodds with talons and leathery rings would would wake me up in a cold sweat. So, another little side note here, when it mentioned that, I thought of, like, my grandma with, like, as a demon. Like, with big leathery wings and the horns and the talons and, like, a little pitchfork and stuff. And I couldn't stop laughing. So, there's that. So I think I'll cut it off here. Looking at the time, it's around 10 minutes, so I think that's enough. But anyways, I'll see you later. Thanks for listening to the Page Podcast. See you next time. Bye.